today. The Intra-Africa Trade Fair, organized by the Afri-Exim Bank in collaboration with the African Union Commission and the AFCFTA Secretariat, was held in Cairo, Egypt in 2018 as a flagship platform to boost trade and investment across Africa. It was created to bring together buyers, sellers, innovators, and governments to unlock opportunities presented by the African Continental Free Trade Area. The IATF provides provides a unique space for businesses to showcase goods and services engaged in business to business and business to government exchanges and explore intra-African markets linkages. Since its inception, the IATF has grown into Africa's premier trade and investment market space. IATF 2018 in Cairo attracted over 1,000 exhibitors and generated trade and investment deals worth more than $32 billion. IATF 2021 in Durban, South Africa, welcomed over 1,100 exhibitors from 59 countries and recorded deals worth about $42 billion. IATF 2023 in Cairo hosted 1,600 exhibitors and achieved trade and investment commitments exceeding $43 billion. A lot around this, and of course some other developments around the export space. My guest is Dr. Bamidele Ayemibo. He is an international trade financial expert. He's live in the studio for us to have this conversation today. Good afternoon, Dr. Ayemibo. It's good to have you live in our studio.
Thank you very much. How are you today?
Well, I'm very well. Thank you for coming. I think we should start with an overview of the IATF in its entirety. When we look at all of these projections, they look very juicy to me, looking at that African market. Yes, I'm more of the Naira and the Kobo part of it, and it's so interesting when you see the billions of dollars like this. But what do you make of the entirety of that arrangement, IATF, and the prospects of it?
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic arrangement because, one of the strategies to grow trade around the world is going for trade fair, organizing trade fair. People must be able to get to meet people they want to do business with. And I think IATF make that opportunity available for African continent. And not just African continent, people also come from outside of Africa, actually, to come and do business with Africa. So it's really like a melting point and a convergence for different businesses or different people around Africa coming together to meet, to discuss. And considering the fact that we want to grow trade under the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, is actually a way to also appraise the progress we are making every year as we converge to discuss, to discuss business and forge and discuss our future of how to grow the intra-African trade.
To boost investment across Africa, showcase goods and services, will you say that this trade fair has actually achieved this?
It has not achieved it, but I think we are on the trajectory to achieving it. It has not, because the data is still not showing significantly the impact of IATF yet, because we just started IATF. I think it just started. The first edition was after COVID, if I'm not mistaken, because AFCFTA itself was formally launched after COVID. So we just have few editions in Cairo, I think in Cote d'Ivoire, now in Algeria. So we expect to begin to see the dividend and the impact of that in the coming years. But coming together, I think it's very necessary to appraise the progress we are making and be able to get to meet people you are dealing with, considering the fact that we also have issue among ourselves as Africans, even in doing business with ourselves. So getting to meet people, discussing with them one-on-one gives that kind of confidence that I'm dealing with the right person, and they're most likely will be able to start a trade deal that will grow trade in Africa.
It's a big market, honestly speaking, when you see countries coming together to harness this. But when we talk about opportunities now, coming back home, I'll definitely be selfish. I will look at my country. What are those opportunities for us?
In Africa, what I see as opportunity for Nigeria in Africa is focusing on fast-moving consumer goods. If you look at Africa, majority of African countries are either lower middle or low income economy. meaning they earn very little, meaning they will only be able to buy, they have low disposable income, they'll be able to buy things sufficient for them to survive. So businesses that are selling what everyday human being need, from personal care products, food, drugs, which are what we actually need to be exporting also, because we have more value-added products. In Africa, I don't think we stand a chance with commodities. Apart from maybe cocoa, maybe crude oil, and a few others, we don't stand a chance with commodity because many African countries are even worse than Nigeria, meaning they are not adding value and processing the way we are, even in Nigeria. So we will do better by adding value. So fast-moving consumer goods, I think, is our quick win and even low-hanging fruit, meaning anything you are selling in Nigeria today that Nigeria are buying definitely have a huge opportunity on the African continent.
What about services? I heard people talk about services. That, this market is not just about sometimes goods. We talk too much of goods and all of that. That we can also
do a lot of
services. And we have it in Nigeria.
Yeah, we can do a lot in services. Global trade, as a last year, according to WTO, is about $33 trillion. Trade in goods, about 24 trillion. Trade in services, about 9 trillion. Now, services before COVID was about 6 trillion. In the last 5 years, it has grown from 6 to 9. So that's about 50% increase in just 5 years. So services is definitely a place we must look at. And considering the fact that services require lesser infrastructure than value-added goods. So we definitely must be looking at service export. The challenge for us in Nigeria is that we have not developed a framework around how to harness the potential. So for example, for exporting from Nigeria, you have the NXP, Nigerian Export Proceed Form, which enable government to capture the export of goods from Nigeria. But we don't have, although I heard we are working on NSPX, that's supposed to be non-oil export proceed for services. But we've not been able to develop that and put that so that we'll be able to say, and there must be an incentive because people are already exporting services, by the way. They're already exporting services, only that they are not being documented. So government must put an incentive in place to make people to want to document their services, because service export can be such that I can render service and deliver over the internet. I can travel to render the service. They can come to me to receive the service. And I can decide to set up a business there. So there are different modes of service export. So if we don't document, if we don't create a framework to document it and give an incentive, we might not be able to capture service export from Nigeria.
So there's a lot of work.
A lot of work
around that space. Now, the issue of trading in local currencies over dollar is something that I'm sure you know that I was going to ask you, because it came to the fore again at this gathering, talking about how we can expand trade with trading in local currencies. Do you think that can happen?
Of course, that's the essence of the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System. The goal of Pan-African Payment and Settlement System is the fact that Africa is fragmented. As in, our payment system is so fragmented. Over 30 currencies on the African continent. Why? Because of the the work of the colonial masters, the way they separated us. But what has happened is, with Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, I can export to Ghana and get paid in cedis, and I'll receive naira. I can export to South Africa and get paid in rand, and I'll receive naira. Now, what that means is that the South African person does not need to be looking for dollar. In fact, for many African countries that have issue with their foreign reserve, they won't have to worry about depleting their foreign reserve to be able to pay for such services individually. It's just like, each time I think about trade and risk of trade, particularly foreign exchange risk, I ask myself, how does an American exporter think? American exporter does not think of foreign exchange risk.
Yeah.
Why? Because he spends dollar, he exports in dollars. That's exactly what we can do. I spend naira, I can export in naira. I spend cedis, I can export in cedis. I send rand, I can export in rand. That's exactly where, because at this point now, I don't have a single currency in Africa yet. We must find a way to be able to trade, and that's what Pan-African Payment and Settlement System have been able to fix. So trading in our own currency is extremely important. Although some people will say, what's the goal of export if I'm not generating FX, if I'm not getting dollar, which is a good reason. However, if I'm an importer, that's an opportunity for me, because if today I can source my product in Africa, my raw material in Africa as a manufacturer in Nigeria, then I won't have to worry about queuing up for FX. I can easily pay in naira and get my goods without having to worry about the FX risk. So I think it's a way to go while we are working towards building one united Africa with a single currency.
One united Africa with a single currency. So PAPs, you talked about, you mentioned PAPs now. As PAPs become so effective now that we're already transacting along that line, or it's just been initiated?
We're already transacting. Some banks in Nigeria are already transacting. People are already using it, but it's not yet pervasive yet. And the reason is because not every African country are on board. A few countries are already on board. Nigeria is on board. Ghana is on board. A number of African countries are on board. Now, because of the technology involved and the processes involved, so it's taking some countries some time to come on board, but everybody eventually will have to come on board because that will make it easier for them to be able to trade. So I won't say we are there yet, but at least I can confirm to you that Nigerian bank, I don't want to advertise anybody, but some Nigerian banks are already on board and people are already paying on this platform and receiving payment on this platform.
Now, back to the IATF and the benefits of the IATF. I'm looking at some countries now that have a more competitive environments than Nigeria. You know what we face here. Our manufacturers will tell you about power supply, high energy cost at the moment. That's even when government is trying to use the band A, band B, C, D thing, we still have that issue. So those countries that are a bit more competitive than Nigerians, are you sure they're not going to get the best of the market?
They will get the best of the market at the beginning. But when you look at Africa, you know, sometimes when we talk about this thing, we look at it, we don't really appreciate the way Nigeria is in the fact that we are better than many African countries. If you check the last time I checked the competitiveness index in Africa, Nigeria was number 15 out of 55 countries. Nigeria is better than 40 countries. Better than 50 countries. What that means is that in as much as we have a number of countries better than Nigeria, the fact is that we still have about 40 countries Nigeria is better than, meaning we are still competitive. And my opinion is, I think we should concentrate more on where we have a comparative advantage or competitive advantage. For example, okay, we discussed on phone about share nut, for example, and share butter. Yes. Nigeria produced about 40% of that. So product that you have an advantage in, add value to it to export, meaning even if it's expensive, you sit at a chance in Africa because you are at an advantage because that raw material is found in your country. So focus on the area you have comparative advantage and you still stand a chance on the African continent in spite of the fact that we are number 15 on the competitiveness index. Meaning, because look, we already, if you check MBS data on export from Nigeria, majority of export from Nigeria to West Africa and Central Africa are value add, majority. Of course, we have some commodity there, onions, and a number of other commodities, wheat and the like, but we have a lot of value add. We're already exporting it. With AFCFTA, it's supposed to make it cheaper because now I can enter some of those countries duty-free because I'm enjoying the benefit of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement.
Now that government came up recently to ban the export of share nuts, I think for 6 months for the start.
Yes.
How does that come to you? What does it make?
You know, the challenge I have with the way we go about our policy sometimes is knee-jerk. I feel the government should have done this long before now. Good policy, bad timing. That's my opinion on this. Good policy, bad timing. Bad timing in the sense that some people already have signed contract to supply share nuts. Now, this ban is going to hinder that. And you know the challenge of trade is, if I'm doing trade with you in a country and you mess up, I don't see you, I see your country. So you will see, you say, Nigeria, it's not just this company messed me up, this country could not deliver. It's Nigeria the people are seeing, and that's the way we should see it. And that's the reason why I think government should really have a rethink on that policy that, look, we really cannot ban the export of share nut in the middle of the season. We can then say, okay, from next season, you will not be able to export share nut out of Nigeria. You will have to add value to it, to a share butter, or probably to even the level of cosmetics to be able to export. So it's a good policy, no doubt, because we need to add value. I mean, a good example why that policy is necessary is, look at cocoa value chain. Total demand for cocoa in the world is about 9-10 billion. When the price went up, it went to almost 20 billion. But when you check the demand for now, out of that, by the way, 75% of that export from West Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire. But the export of chocolate, just one aspect of the value chain, chocolate is over 30 billion. Cocoa butter is over 5 billion. So who is making money? The people exporting cocoa butter, the people exporting chocolate are not West Africans. There are people who are adding value to it. So we are not really making all the money that we're supposed to make from that product because we're not adding value. Look at cashew. A ton of cashew max $1,000, $1,500. If you remove the shell of cashew and you export cashew kernel, you can sell as much as $7, $8, $9, sometimes $10,000. Who is making money? The person exporting the raw cashew to Vietnam and India, who buy 90% of raw cashew nuts in the world, or the Vietnam and India who export the cashew kernel to Europe and America, who are making all the money. So we really need to add value. But for this policy, I think it's by timing, and I think the government should really consider the people that already have contract, probably even have good already on the way to the port when that policy came in, and the policy is taking effect almost immediately.
That is also something to really look out for. So, but moving on, export earnings seems to be increasing. You heard the president even talking about hitting revenue targets and non-oil
That's
exports.
for non-oil income.
Income, income, yes. But for, that's, exports and part of it, there's tax, there's all in that. I get your point. But the thing is, focusing on non-oil exports. Which also we saw a 19% increase in the last report from the NEPC. I can remember clearly.
And that's half year, which is commendable.
That's half year commendable. So what do you make moving on with regards to that?
I think that
despite the ban or no ban?
No, share nut contribution is really very small. I mean, because the challenge with share nut is, which I think the people who were affected the most, majority of share nut, Nigeria produces about 40-50% of share nut production in the world, over 350,000 tons. Nigeria alone. Majority of that go to Togo and Ghana. Ghana and Togo do a lot of shea butter export. Majority of those shea nut from it are from Nigeria. So we are not, I don't see it affecting the data significantly. Now, coming back to your question, I think NEPC is doing something right. I think whatever it is we are doing, we should continue because we are seeing a trajectory, even though we can do a lot better. We can do a lot better. But, I mean, if you see a progress, you should recognize it. And the reason is, last year, we had an increase. This year, we're having an increase. Last year, I attributed the increase to fertilizer, Dangote coming in, and the price of cocoa. But now, in spite of that, we're still having an increase, which means beyond the reason we thought was the increase last year, I think they're getting something right. Maybe because Nigerians are not seeing the need for export, because we do a lot of training on export, and a number of people are coming for our training program. So I would say the awareness is increasing. Importers are beginning to see the need to become independent of FX, generating the FX, the defense of government. So a lot of factors are contributing to it. And the fact that the exchange rate moved from 400, 450 to 1,500, more money to be earned from export. A lot of factors are contributing to the reason why people are beginning to see the need for export. I think we're getting something right. I think it's helping, adding a lot of value to the economy. What I'm not sure is how sustainable this will be. That's why I said whatever NEPC is doing, I think they need to continue. If the effort is one creating, I assume it's the effort that is contributing to the increase, so that at the end of the day, if for any reason the government policy improve and exchange will begin to come down, and we don't begin to see a decline in the number of people that want to export.
Indeed, that's really key. I think it's a good way to live it. I'm just saying, Nigeria 2027 will be hosting IETF. That's a good one.
It's a good one. I'm excited to see Nigeria host in Lagos, by the way.
Yeah, Lagos
2027. Yes. I think it's long overdue because we bidded for the secretariat of AFCFTA.
Okay.
But we didn't sign on time. And that's why I went to Ghana. And President Obasanjo, former President Obasanjo is the chairman of IETF. And so I'm not surprised that this is coming to Nigeria at this point. And it's really a good one for us. And I'm looking forward to Nigeria. We must really be strategic and plan to ensure that we leverage on that to connect with a lot of business in Africa to be able to boost Nigeria export to Africa after that program in 2027.
All right, I must thank you so much for your time, Dr. Bamidele Ayemibo, International Trade and Finance Expert. They're breaking down issues around Intra-Africa Trade Fair, as interesting as it is, and also Nigeria's ban on share nuts, particularly. Before you go, let me ask you about adding value. It's key for me because you talked about chocolate, we've talked about share nuts and all of that. Are we adding the much needed value? We
are not doing as much as we should, but we're adding value. But when you look at the basket of our export, the value added products are not topping the list. The people topping the list, apart from oil and gas, topping the list on export in Nigeria is cocoa, cashew, sesame. So the volume of export of the value add is not there yet, but we are adding value. We are adding value, but you are aware of the infrastructural challenges in Nigeria, power issues. So a lot of people that would have added value are not. Now, this is what I would recommend before we close to the government. There was a time I visited a particular factory in Leicester in the UK. Look at what happened in this particular factory. Governments, public-private partnership. I think we can do that to achieve in Nigeria. You have a company, so let's say shea butter. You have a factory that produces shea butter, and businesses or farmers who trade in shea nut will bring their shea nut there. And after 2 weeks, I can come and pick up my shea butter, and I'll be charged per ton. Now, what that means is that I don't have to worry about power. I don't have to worry about processing. I don't have to worry about so many things because I now have a particular location where I can take that product to, they will process it and package it in my brand. We need that kind of what they typically will call processing center or aggregation center for Nigeria so that SMEs can easily begin to add value without having to worry about certification requirement of NAFDAC, of SON, and other agencies in Nigeria.
Because that's also very, very key when you look at this. But at the end of the day, trade policies is something that worries me, and I always like to talk about it. How well do you think this present government is doing about improving trade policy and, of course, our industrial policies?
Now, let's go to what is happening in America. That's a signal to the fact that we must have a very workable trade policy in Nigeria. Look at the decision they've taken. That look, in our country, this is what we want. This is what we are expecting. This is the duty that we apply. Now, what that is telling us is we also must be very decisive on what we want to do as far as trade policy is concerned. In Nigeria today, we really are not very firm on our trade policies in terms of who are we going to do business with. Let me give you an example.
Okay.
Nigeria today produces soya beans. China is the largest importer of soya beans. Why? And we need to generate forex. Why can't we have an arrangement with China in which Nigeria is saying, look, we are giving you a lot of businesses in Nigeria to build bridges, build roads, build this. Why can't you give us a share of your market? That's exactly the way Trump is negotiating. Negotiating with different countries and saying, some countries are happy giving Trump 19%, Trump shipping good to them 0%. Because of the market they are trying to enjoy, or the benefit they enjoy in the US. That's exactly what we should begin to have conversation with China and say, look, give us 5% of your share, soya beans demand. Let's be the one that will supply this 5%. This will contribute because soya beans demand in the US is almost 100 billion. And Nigeria can produce that volume with 1 trillion naira being used to support Bank of Agriculture. We cannot produce a lot to be able to meet some of those demands and grow our non-oil exports. So I think we need to improve more and do a lot more as far as trade policy is concerned. And the trade policy must create number of exporters, increase the number of exporters. Nigerians today have over 20,000 registered exporters, but every year about 1,500 are exporting. That means less than 10% are exporting from people that have registered. So policy around creating and doubling. So we are doubling export volume. We should double the number of exporters in Nigeria.
Dr. Bamidele Ayemibo, international trade and finance expert, interested export doctor, like he's always called. Thank you so much for coming to the studio.
Thank you for having me.
Let me get a handshake.
And you have a fantastic studio.
All right, thank you so much. Hope to see you again.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, then. All right, then we will take a break. When we return, we'll be